Carl Sagan could not have predicted 2021, but he did see it coming. He wrote the following back in 1995, and we quote, "I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when, clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels good and what's true, we slide almost without noticing back into superstition and darkness. The dumbing down of America is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content and the enormously influential media. The 30-second sound bites now down to 10 seconds or less. Lowest common denominator programming, credulous presentations on pseudoscience and superstition, but especially a kind of celebration of ignorance. Roll that around for a while. Those were among his final published words. He died 10 months later. Here we are 25 years later, realizing just what he was trying.
Ashton Forbes, you know, that super jacked guy.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
Even as these grainy satellite images released today by the Chinese government.
Why shoot it down though if it's not hostile?
Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space.
Why the Americans would?
They leave distance annihilated.
This country is very powerful. Far more powerful than people understand. We have weaponry that nobody has any idea what it is, and it is the most powerful weapons in the world. Not even close.
I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should be his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that, one way or another.
Let's do this, guys. Hell yeah. Welcome, guys, everybody. Thank you for joining the stream tonight. We are back, baby. We are back from the holiday break. I hope you guys had a great Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. I approve of it all. Guys, I want to get right into it tonight. The name of the stream tonight is a cube inside of a sphere. Cube inside of a sphere, and there's a very specific reason why. We have been trying to figure out what are the MH370 videos? What is the physics that we are seeing in those videos in the intro? And today I can say that we are one step closer. If I can put it into Marvel movie terms for you, I would say that we have just collected another Infinity Stone. Yes, one more Infinity Stone is now on the gauntlet. We are one step closer to snapping away all the intelligence spooks off to the Netherland, back to the ether where they belong. And what do I mean by this? I mean the Bussard Ramjet engine. I can't even remember. I get down these rabbit holes where I do this research, and I don't even remember where the origin is. I feel like Tom Hudson or one of the other people that is in my replies all the time shooting me research and be like, with their hand up right now. I apologize. I don't remember where this came from, but essentially, I started digging into Bussard and his Ramjet engine. And I found out right away, and we're going to go through this tonight, that he was possibly the earliest source for working on high beta aneutronic fusion concepts with the, I think he's with Oak Ridge, and he was at Los Alamos. So any high beta concept, you guys know, we're looking at those. So start digging into him, and I'm going to show you guys the receipts tonight. And it turns out he's buddy with George Miley, David Froning, Paul Siz, Eric W. Davis, Mark Millis from NASA as well. Basically everybody that we've been researching, he's connected to. And I'm going to spoil the ending for you here right now, right at the beginning. I can't even believe this, chat. I'm going to show it to you in a little bit, but so I'm looking for who this guy's connected to because I see that he'd been researching with George Miley and researching with David Froning. And these are people that are all over the papers that we've been researching. And so I asked Grok, cross-reference Dr. Robert Bussard's Ramjet engine with the scientific papers that we've been researching, specifically Eric W. Davis. What do you guys think happened? Boom. One of Eric W. Davis's papers for the military has a whole section about Bussard's Ramjet engine, and we've reviewed it before. And then the real kicker, the ultimate Yahtzee of the night. I'm not doing the Candace Owens. I'm just telling you guys straight up. I said, okay, wait a minute. Cross-reference this Ramjet plasma engine with Paul Siz. Paul Siz is our hypersonic goat. And what did it say? And in fact, this part, I think I have to read off verbatim for you guys because I couldn't believe the words that I was reading, and I had to start looking to see like what sources was this actually pulling from. So let me read this off for you guys here. I had it cross-reference Paul Siz. Where is it? Right here. Where is it? Crap. You know what? Okay, well, I'll just say it, and then I'll try to find it here. So I asked it to reference Paul Siz, and it says, yes, Paul Siz also wrote elaborately and potentially collaborated with Bussard to, get this, in the early 2000s, incorporate Dr. Robert Bussard's Ramjet plasma engine into hypersonic craft. Boom. Direct connection from this plasma fusion propulsion concept connected directly to the hypersonic crafts that Paul Siz was working on and talking about. So now we've taken both of these worlds and connected them together. So one of the questions a lot of people ask me is, what are the orbs in the MH370 videos? I'll tell people they're a plasma fusion reactor. That's what I think that they are. But the question has been out there. Are these things just plasma? Or is there some kind of mechanical device of some sort in them? And I'm ready to say that there is something inside of them. Today, I've been pushed over the edge now. I was already leaning towards there being something inside of the plasma orbs. But now I'm pretty much convinced that we are looking at the product of Bussard's Ramjet engine combined with the hypersonic designs of Paul Siz and others for the government to incorporate fusion into this engine. One other thing that I've concluded from this, we're going to go talk about it today and possibly tomorrow again. This is most likely going to be a two-part stream. There's a lot to go over, more than I could possibly have imagined. Is that I don't think that what's inside those orbs is a tube anymore. I think that they're directing the X-rays or charged particles with those black lines you see coming out of these orbs. I think they're directing those with magnetic fields. The magnetic fields are what's directing those. The shape of Robert Bussard's plasma device is spherical. Spherical, just like those orbs you see that right there on your screen right now. And so his design, when you look at his, they call it the WB1 through WB6 design, it's quite literally a cube. It's a cube. It's a cube, and what they've done is they've hollowed it out on the inside. So you've got these circles, you've got these donuts that are just connected together, just like you see on the thumbnail right now. These donuts that are connected together in polyhedral formations. Polyhedral formations just mean shapes like hexagon, octagon. So they take these toroids, these donuts, and they create shapes, structures out of them. And then what happens is it creates a well, creates a negative potential well on the inside that the fusion is attracted to. And then what happens is you get a plasma sphere surrounding your cube, because the plasma sphere is the magnetic, where the magnetic fields basically force the electrons to kind of pull back. So you would see this magnetic field, circular plasma orb. And if you were able to see through the plasma, you would see a cube. Well, a hollowed out cube, but something that its outside structure would be a cube. That's what his device would look like. This reminded me of something. Does this remind you guys of anything in the chat right now? Let me go here to this video. Lex Friedman, one of my favorite podcasters, as you guys know, Lex Friedman, obviously, is talking to a man named Ryan Graves. Ryan Graves is from the United States Air Force, and he has become one of these UFO people. He won't talk to me or interact with me, even though we're looking at Air Force Gorgon stare footage in one of the two videos, which I find suspicious. But anyway, remember this clip?
Dropping altitude the last minute, you know, we're going by pretty quick, so it's difficult to tell. But perhaps if his radar wasn't working, he wasn't receiving energy from the jet. And the jet, of course, didn't know that it was there. And so whatever the case was, they flew right by, and they described it just as a dark gray or black cube inside a clear translucent sphere. And the apex of the cube were touching the inside of that sphere.
What? Now you understand why the name of tonight's live stream is Cube Within a Sphere. Because what the hell is a cube in a sphere? You could easily imagine that the sphere of what those people were describing could have been the magnetic fields where the plasma would cut off. And you could imagine there would be a structure inside of there where the fusion reaction is happening. And if it was possible that you could see through the plasma, you might be able to see the internal structure of the device. In fact, maybe the reason why we can't in the MH370 videos is because it's thermal. It's thermal, so we can't see through the skin, just like with the engine, just like with the plane. This is the other thing I want to tell you guys. One of the things that we've learned is you can make objects optically invisible, but you can't make something both optically invisible and invisible from infrared. You can't make them invisible from both at the same time. And what was weird about this story is right before he says that, he says that they weren't showing up on radar. The objects were not showing up on radar. So this is why I thought instantly, I went, wait a minute. If it's not showing up on radar, it's going to show up optically. They're going to be able to visually see it because you can only cloak from one of the two at once. So perhaps whatever mode the drone was in, we're going to call it a drone, that was hovering there, it was allowing them to see it, but it wasn't showing up on infrared. And they ended up seeing the internal structure of it. Now, one last thing I want to say on this is that I don't think aliens are playing games while our fighter jets are flying around. They don't need to. They don't care. That's stuff that either our military would do or our adversaries would do, because they want to test out how this technology works in conjunction with our more antiquated technology, the stuff we're going to be deploying in the field. So just for a rationale for why they would have these weird sightings happening while people are doing training exercises and things like that is because you've got people that are in their know test running secret projects. And Ryan Graves says this in the interview. He says, we're under the impression that this is like high level secret technology or secret devices that people are using. And their concern is that it's putting people at risk because you got these orbs or whatever flying around and you could run into it. Okay. So let me play that one more time because I just think that I'm not trying to say this is necessarily what Ryan Graves was saying, but I'm saying that it is very odd how I came into this, or we came into this investigation knowing very little about the UFO community and the lore, knowing very little about the science. And we keep finding these connections where it's almost like you can explain all of the lore with this technology. Fusion plasma orbs flying around explains a lot of the lore of UFOlogy, especially in the last 20 years. And then it turns out that it also explains all this lore about nuclear weapons and fusion and why fusion has, for some reason, hit this major roadblock for the last 60 years. Well, turns out it's a big scam and the DOE's had it solved, but us little peasants can't know until China knows. Okay. So that is our content for tonight. First thing before we get into that, little self-congratulatory content here. I want to hear what Dr. Yu has to say about MH370. If you guys were not aware, Dr. Yu is on with Redacted. This was just like yesterday. Come check it out. It's got a lot of views on it here. And he was asked about MH370, and he says that he thinks the MH370 videos are real. I knew that he thought that because he and I talked about it when we were in the van ride to Tim Pool several months back. But it's still pretty cool to hear it from Dr. Yu. Okay, let me see here. Okay. So let's see what Dr. Yu has to say about MH370 here. And in general, he basically says, he thinks the videos are real and that the physics on display there is not the type of thing that's easy for somebody to fake. I think that's what our conversation was. So I want to hear what he has to say about, supposedly he says how he thinks the physics works, which I actually haven't listened to this part yet. So we're going to see what happens here live. I think that you could describe the wormhole they're producing as a magnetic wormhole. There's actually a scientific paper out there if you Google magnetic wormholes. I think it's from 2015. Really good paper. Where they're actually able to make objects literally disappear using electromagnetism. Well, Dr. Yu's whole thing is that he believes that all of the fundamental forces in physics, the gravity, gravity is not really a force, but let's just bear with me. Gravity, electromagnetism, the nuclear force, also known as the strong force, and the weak force. Those are considered the fundamental forces in physics. Dr. Yu believes that these are all the same force. It's all just magnetism. Different applications or different ways where magnetism is being applied. So magnetism, electromagnetism, and gravity, we're already saying that those can be unified. Kaluza-Klein theory. You're only left with the strong force and the weak force. And what Dr. Yu is saying is it has to do with orientation and spin of your particles, which will change that. I happen to think that he makes a really strong argument. Now that I've given you guys the background, let's go ahead and listen to what he has to say about his theory.
Interesting. What do you think happened to flight MH370?
I told accident forums, I said I was in the camp. Believe those images are Apple images, but at one point, that's one night before we go to Tim Pool's show together, me and Accident Forum, and he posted online a different video, which gave me looked like that's real. So I said, okay. I saw that video. I convinced because that video is instead of opposite color, right. Like a video opposite color. It's like in real flight, color and the pattern and the show. But include the last minute exploded, right? Yeah, that one. So I said, okay, I can now. I tendency see, hey, I have to be open minded. It could be military operation.
So, yeah, with the technology and the scientists that were on board that craft, and you look more deeply as to who was on board, what was on board, why would they intentionally try to? Yeah, why would they need to have access to this exactly?
I do believe now. So,
Yeah,
yes.
I do as well. I don't think there's no evidence at all that it crashed. So again, show me the evidence, and I think the evidence is pretty overwhelming. And plus, not only from Ashton's research on this and others' research, but I've spoken to insiders who've also told me that we control these plasmoid technologies. We have control of it. So I'm a believer. I will sit in that camp until I'm proven wrong. I want to talk more about UAPs, UFOs. I hate calling them.
Okay, so I guess where does he talk about it? I thought he said, somebody told me he talks about how the physics work. I think he's going to say it like after this. So okay, let's just let him go. Keep going.
UAPs, just because I feel like that's like a modern way of trying to.
I know they try to avoid the.
Yeah, pretty much every one of these NASA engineers and individuals who work at NASA think that we are one of many species in the universe. Or
all right, well, I'll just go back to this. I got other stuff I want to dig into here. One other thing I wanted to look at though was, I guess Redacted asked some other guy, JP. You guys probably know, you guys are better at keeping up with the videos on Redacted than I am, but I guess this guy is like some kind of whistleblower, supposedly, for UFO stuff. Yeah, I think this is it here. Yeah, this guy. Okay. Supposedly he's asked about teleportation. He says that it's real and stuff like that, or maybe he's asked about MH370. Let me do a quick look. Not in this video. Oh, yeah, here you go. Wormhole teleportation. Okay, here we go. Jump rooms. Okay, let's see what he has to say.
And you're out somewhere else.
Would you describe it as like a wormhole? Or actually teleporting you? Like transporter Star Trek style?
Yeah, you still see yourself. You phase out, you black out, you phase in, phase out. I don't know how to tell you, but it feels like a jump room. The room jumps and you're there. You're just there.
All right, I want to go back to the moon. So you get in this group of individuals.
Okay. Yeah, well, maybe come back to that, guys. Let's go to the main content for tonight, guys. Okay. Where do I have it here? So, I have it all ready to go right here. Nice. Oh, I remember how this all played out. Let me go to my windows here for you guys. I was looking up this book here. So how this story plays out, I was looking up this book, Frontiers in Propulsion Science. I'm actually going to probably pick up a copy of this because I noticed that Mark Millis wrote this with Eric W. Davis. And it talks about some of the concepts, hypersonic concepts, advanced propulsion concepts that we've been talking about. This feels like this is the kind of book that is going to be a good investment opportunity. I mean, this book's probably going to cost like $1,000 in 10 years, So yeah, I was looking up this book, and I was looking up this Bussard guy and his background, and it turns out he is connected to the Tau Zero Foundation. Tau Zero Foundation, what's that? I got no idea. So I Google it, and I find this Tau Zero website. And look at all this stuff it's got on it. I mean, look at this. Look at this webpage. We look for things that make us go. And you've got all this Star Trek kind of stuff on here. Solar sails, nuclear-related things. Here's the propulsion for science. It's got Eric W. Davis being featured on it. This right here is Mark Millis, 2012. Mark Millis, this is probably like something that came out of the JPP, the BPP, Breakthrough Physics Propulsion Conference out of NASA. Okay. So find all this stuff talking about non-locality, translocation, hyperspace, wormholes, warp drives, really all the things that we're talking about. Breaking the light limit sound break analogy. They're talking about what would it be like if you could actually break the speed of light. Here's the Alcubierre warp metric. Antimatter catalyzed fusion. We'll keep that one in our back pocket. But here's the Bussard interstellar ramjet. Let me read this to you guys. The biggest problem with propulsion at star flight levels is having to carry the propellant. All that fuel adds up. And the faster you want to go, the more you need. Hence, the more mass you need to push. Envisioned by Robert Bussard in 1960, a Bussard ramjet gets around the problem by collecting interstellar hydrogen in a vast electromagnetic scoop, using hydrogen fusion to drive the vehicle. Unlike any other interstellar propulsion method, a Bussard ramjet would actually become more efficient the faster it went. The reason for that is because, in theory, the faster it's going, the more hydrogen it can collect, allowing travel at a high percentage of the speed of light. Subsequent studies, though, have shown that a ram scoop like this also causes serious drag issues, problems that would have to be addressed if the ramjet were to ever become viable. Now, let me go ahead and say we know. Well, what is the answer? What is the answer to the drag issue, chat? Well, Paul Sizz would tell us the answer to the drag issue is a plasma sheath. A plasma sheath is the laser that you shoot in front of you to pre-ionize the air to make a plasma bubble. Now you don't have any drag. What is the answer? And let me just go ahead. I'm going to spoil most of this. So this idea was actually famous. Again, I'm telling you that the science we're uncovering is directly connected to the lore in space propulsion, nuclear weapons research, fusion research, UFOlogy, all of it. This was a famous thing in the 1960s that this guy came up with. And do you know what everybody said? The reason why, the only reason why people were against it, people weren't against that it wouldn't work. They weren't against the physics. They weren't against the chemistry of anything that was happening. The reason why everybody says it wouldn't work, and you guys can fact check me on this, because there's not enough hydrogen in outer space. Space is too empty. So it won't work. Sorry. It was a good idea, but useless. Throw it away. What? What do we... Wait, what? So what? So, like, sorry, so what? Like, is anybody else just about to crash out right now? Because I'm like, wait, so there's not enough hydrogen in outer space. Great. Do you know where there is enough hydrogen? Here. In the atmosphere, in the water, really just anywhere on planet Earth. There's plenty of hydrogen everywhere. So I'm just thinking in my mind going like, why is that a downfall? Who cares if it can't fly to the moon? And in fact, the craziest part about this is that when I've looked at the MH370 orbs, and I'm pretty sure I'm like on record on like dozens of streams saying this, I said, I don't know if these orbs can travel in interstellar space. Because clearly there's a bubble of plasma around them, and even if that plasma slowly leaks away, unless you're replenishing it, it's going to be gone. And so, did I just get lucky and able to deduce that? Or is there a real connection here? And we really are looking at the Bussard ramjet engine. Yeah, it doesn't work in outer space. It works on Earth just fine. In fact, it's transmedium because there's hydrogen in the water and there's hydrogen in the air. And we can ionize either of them, turn either of them into a plasma and use it to power our fusion orbs that we're doing. Okay, back to this. Okay, and so we can overcome the drag issue. Listen to this part. The kind of proton fusion Bussard imagined only occurs at the heart of stars. Other kinds of fusion may be more practical for future ramjet designs. Chat, this made me go full on Kill Bill. First thing when I read that, I said, what do you mean proton fusion? You say proton fusion to me? To Ashton? You come to me saying, hey, Ashton, proton fusion. I go, do you mean proton boron 11 fusion? Give you that full side eye. Full side eye. Are you talking about proton boron 11 fusion, my man? Because if you are, you just stepped into the ring with the big dog. You stepped into the ring with the big dog now. We know a little bit about that. It's called aneutronic fusion. And you're telling me that a guy from the 1960s was talking about doing aneutronic fusion with proton boron 11? Okay, I'm full interested now. Keep in mind, guys, at this point, during the research on Saturday, I still had not put the connection together that this guy is connected to Eric W. Davis, Paul Sizz, and all the rest of these people. At this point, I'm just seeing this and I'm going, wait a minute, I think we found something here. Spider sense is tingling like crazy right now. Okay, next thing. I think, in fact, Tim Ventura deserves a lot of credit. It's starting to get weird, though. It's starting to get weird that Tim Ventura's articles and interviews are like, I mean, sure, he's done this a lot longer than me. But it's almost like he's laying out the yellow brick road. Like, here you go. Here's another article you should read. Like, look at this. This is only from a couple months ago, October 21st, 2025. This is a few days before my birthday. The Bussard Ramjet and Polywell fusion reactor. This is going to be a good one, chat. Let's all have a sip of whatever beverage that we're enjoying tonight and settle in, because I'm going to read this whole thing and I'm going to explain it to you. This is one we cannot go light on. I have a feeling that this is like we found the time stone here. We can start to manipulate time now once we've got this guy in our back pocket. Oh, wait, does he have an interview with him? You got an audio interview with him too? Oh, chat. Hold up, chat. Oh my God. I didn't even know we have an interview here. I have another interview ready for us to go tomorrow, but get your fine wine ready. I'm going to read this and then let's come up to the interview and we'll listen to a few select segments. Okay. So Robert Bussard, synonymous with fusion power, played pivotal roles in nuclear space propulsion. In the early 1950s, at the dawn of the Cold War, he joined the Nuclear Energy for Propulsion for Aircraft, NEPA project at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Now, I'm going to interrupt a lot and add my own comments here. Oak Ridge National Laboratory. One of the things that is amazing about this is that just like we would have assumed, if there's some secret technology, the people that are working on it are connected directly to the Department of Energy labs. Oak Ridge, Los Alamos, Sandia, what are the other ones? Whatever. You guys, I don't know how I even know them all at this point. Okay. The goal was ambitious to explore how nuclear energy could power long-range aircraft and eventually spacecraft. Also, is this not enough proof? They literally had a whole project set up for nuclear-powered spacecraft in the 1950s and 1960s. Where did that research go, guys? I feel like I'm about to listen to like people that have had like 5 COVID shots. No, not 5, like 10. They can't stop getting them. They love it. They're collecting them like beanie babies. And they're going to go, it all failed. All the nuclear propulsion just didn't work. We lost all that technology. We lost the way to go back to the moon, and we lost all the fusion nuclear propulsion technologies. Okay. Oak Ridge helped lay the groundwork for thermal nuclear fusion propulsion. Systems in which nuclear reactor would heat the propellant like hydrogen at high temperatures and expel it through a rocket nozzle, creating thrust far greater than chemical engine. Okay, let's skip ahead a little bit. 1955, he joins Los Alamos and became a key participant in Project Rover, a classified collaboration between Los Alamos and NASA's predecessor, NACA, the NACA. Rover sought to build a testing working nuclear rocket engines, an effort that eventually evolved into NERVA. NERVA would go on to successfully prototype engines in the Nevada desert, proving that nuclear thermal propulsion was not only plausible, but technically achievable. Now, I only give us that background because it's just insane to me. And I got to crash out for just 1 second on this. I got blocked by Eric Weinstein the other day. I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I'm not going to apologize. Not going to apologize. I had that clip ready to go to slam him. None of these people read. Eric Weinstein doesn't read. Like, now, I'm not saying he doesn't read books. I'm sure he reads books. He just doesn't read any of these academic papers. He only reads the ones that somebody he wants to see. The best example of this is how Sabine Hassenfelder, she put out a paper a couple months ago, maybe even less. And she's referencing Eric Weinstein's brand new geometric unity paper in it. This is what I'm talking about. The same cliques and all this bullshit that you see in every community also exists in physics. None of these people ever read any of this stuff that we're reviewing. We want to wonder, like, why don't people know about this? Why aren't more people talking about it? Because none of them read anything. You would think that your PhD, elite, smart scientists are reading all this stuff. Some people do. The ones that do are in the black projects. The ones that don't, the ones that just want to live in their fake world, those people don't. They don't read any of it, or they read it and they go, oh, I don't think it's real. Anyway, it's real. Here we go. Okay. So, and here's the other part. He says it applied his belief. This, when he was part of that project, it cemented Bussard's belief that we could get to missions beyond Earth's orbit. So this is what gave birth to Bussard's Ramjet engine. So his thought was there should be hydrogen, like, even if it's diffuse, there should be hydrogen everywhere in the solar system. So we should be able to, or just anywhere in the universe, we should be able to collect it up. We should be able to collect it up and use that hydrogen as our catalyst. Now, if this sounds familiar to you, let me just play you the first few seconds of this other video. When we think about, hey, we can use a little bit of hydrogens out there, and that's all the fuel that we need. We basically don't need fuel in our spacecraft. That should remind you of another video that we've looked at a lot. Here it is. This one.
Fusion is a much safer option. A next generation of airplanes that doesn't rely on fuel and can just stay aloft, unlimited range, unlimited endurance.
There you go. Oh, wait, hold on. Finish that thought.
That's what nuclear fusion can do for an airplane.
That's what nuclear fusion can do for an airplane. Is unlimited loft, unlimited endurance. Okay, so we came up with this idea of the Bussard Ramjet engine. Funnel the hydrogen into a fusion reactor, and the faster it goes, the more you can funnel in, and you can accelerate to whatever speed you want, near light speed. Pretty smart idea. Okay. How would it work? How would it go? So the idea here is one that I think we've heard a lot, actually. This is not unusual. I think that a lot of this has already leaked in the public consciousness, is that you would accelerate your craft towards the speed of light, and then you start to decelerate when you get halfway there. And by doing this, you're relativistic. You have some time dilation effect. So even if it's like 4 light years away, you can get there in like 1 year. Or you can get there in 10 years or something like that. So you can get there, depending on how fast you go towards the speed of light, you can get there a lot faster than our current capabilities allow. Now, we're not talking teleportation. We're not talking about wormholes here. But we are talking about really high speeds, just using this by funneling in the energy from externally, from empty space. Just not empty, right? There's little bits of hydrogen in there. Okay, so practical limits quickly surface. Space is much emptier than assumed, requiring scoops the size of small planets. Fusion with ordinary hydrogen is vastly inefficient, and any energy gained from the fusion might be offset by the energy required to accelerate the collected hydrogen to the ship's current velocity, because you need that hydrogen to be going your speed too. Later analyses concluded that the concept was theoretically beautiful, but physically infeasible with today's understanding. Nevertheless, remains a landmark. So there you go. You listen to that, you go, wait a minute. So you're telling me the downfall, the downside of this is that you couldn't collect enough hydrogen to make it work? So why can't it work in the air? I mean, this is a weapon. You're telling me you can build a compact fusion reactor, but it just doesn't work in outer space? So what? That doesn't sound like a bad thing to me. I don't care about outer space. We got other weapons for outer space. And I want to put in another thing is that the UFO people, if you're one of my alien head followers, I love you too. I don't care if you love aliens. I don't care what you want to do to the aliens. That's on you. That's on your time. Just make sure it's legal. They always say, how could a UFO crash? How could this super advanced race crash? Because maybe that these things are built for a singular purpose. Like I said, you can only be optically invisible or cloak yourself from IR, not from both. There may be advantages to certain fusion propulsion. There may be drawbacks. There may be drawbacks to wormhole technology that we don't know about either. Maybe you come out on the other side of the wormhole, it's not you anymore. Possible. So maybe this is the type of craft that we would use locally on this Earth, but maybe it's not the kind of thing that we would use if we want to go to Mars. Or maybe we use a different version of it, a differently engineered version if we want to go to Mars. Okay. Let's go. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let's skip to the next part here. Here we go. I think this is the part where he talks about aneutronic fusion. Okay. Oh, yeah. Here we go. He's talking about the aneutronic fusion right here. So to address the painfully slow proton-proton fusion rate, Whitmire proposed in the 1970s a catalyzed ramjet that carries trace amounts of carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen to run the faster stellar CNO cycle. Presumably this is like a thermodynamic engine cycle. Catalyst theory theoretically boosts the burn rate by many orders of magnitude, but it also adds complexity. Now the Starship must seed and manage catalytic nuclei while collecting reaction mass from the interstellar medium. So he's saying we can make it more efficient. We need these things like, let's look, carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen. And if we have that, then we can make our fusion reaction more efficient. Okay, well, I'm sorry, but aren't these things that are just found in the air? Aren't these all like just easily commonly found in like the water and the air? Maybe carbon is a little bit harder, but I feel like the rest of them are really easy. So when I see this, I go, isn't somebody definitely, when this was coming around, when they were working on this, was like, hey, why don't we just fly this around in the sky? Isn't that the solution to a lot of problems here? Okay. The late 1970s brought a harsh verdict. Analyses showed that compressing and heating pure hydrogen to fusion conditions incurs Bremsstrahlung radiation. I don't know if I'm saying it right. That's what I'm going to call it. It's a hard-ass word to say, chat. Bremsstrahlung radiation, X-ray losses that can exceed the fusion power available, making straightforward hydrogen-burning ramjet a negative net energy. That conclusion pushed interest towards variants like the Ram-augmented interstellar rocket, which carries its own fusion fuel but uses scooped hydrogen. Another line of work examined the scoop's interaction with plasma flows. Studies argue that the magnetic ram scoop acts like a giant parachute in the solar and interstellar winds, creating drag that can overwhelm plausible thrust. Useful for braking, though, but problematic for sustained acceleration. So the issue here would be that if you create this big net, then there's going to be a force that gets acted upon it, which is going to work against your acceleration. Now, if you don't have a huge net, then you're not going to have a whole lot of problems. So again, this is just another problem that goes away when you now go from looking at the interstellar medium and just going to flying around on Earth. The tokamak ascent. Now it's going to start getting spicy. At the dawn of the 1970s, Bussard moved from the lab bench into Washington policy. He served as the assistant director for the Atomic Energy Commission's fusion division under Robert Hirsch. Wow. In the wake of the oil shock, he and colleagues pushed Congress to dramatically expand the fusion budget, arguing that the field needed a step change in the scale to make real progress. Their initial strategy emphasized large Maxwellian plasma programs tokamaks foremost, not as a final verdict on reactor design, but as a political and organizational lever. The plan, as Bussard later told it, was to stabilize the big lab programs and peel off a meaningful fraction of funds for alternative lines that may have been more practical. So this obviously did not work out, because within months, he says, the original architect left government and the center of gravity shifted decisively towards tokamaks. And to this day, 55 years later, it's still all about tokamaks. Now, he hates tokamaks. The famous quote, the one that I've been talking about, saying that when you look at the sky, how many stars do you see that are shaped like a donut? None. They're all spherical. All the fusion reactors we see in nature are spherical. Do you know where that quote came from? It came from Dr. Robert Bussard himself. Here's the real full quote right here. What we know about tokamaks is they're no damn good, but fusion works. Every star is a fusion reactor, and not one of them is toroidal. Boom. Drop the mic. Talk your shit, King. Talk your shit, King. My dog, look at him. By the way, if I haven't said it enough, the secret is mixing magneto confinement, inertial confinement, and inertial electrostatic confinement. Both of them. Both of them, chat, is the answer. Okay, where are we at? Okay, here we are. Okay, we got a lot more to go through here. Okay, so he argued magnetic fields, while elegant, struggle to confine neutral plasmas without crippling losses, and scaling up toroidal machines only amplified cost and complexity without delivering a clear route to economical power. In 1995, he circulated a letter explaining that early tokamak backing had been tactical. By then, he felt the enterprise had become a large budget-preserving project rather than a power-producing one. So what happened? This is crazy. Now, you guys know more about fusion than probably like 99.99999% of people out there. They built the tokamak reactors just to show the concept of the toroid. And what did we do with it? We decided that was the only way to make fusion work, and it was never going to work using a tokamak. Anybody out there doing tokamak fusion, you're wasting your time. That was only ever meant to show experimentally the idea. You got to take it way beyond that if you want to actually produce practical fusion for the grid, for our civilization. And if you don't believe me, then listen to Robert Bussard himself. This guy's a legend. Okay. Now, Polywell fusion device. Here you go. So what did he design? Polywell, a device aimed to combine the best of electrostatic and magnetic confinement. The core was to use a magnetic cusp fields. Ooh, chat. This is why I'm one of the top world's experts on fusion already. After just a couple of years already. Because I know what that means. That he's talking about a magnetic mirror. He's talking about a magnetic mirror, chat. Definitely talking about magnetic mirror right there. Remember the cusp strategy? The way that the field reverse configuration works is that you create a bubble, magnetic bubble, that your plasma stays in. The problem is the plasma is trying to escape like this. So what do? Is you make a cusp, a magnetic cusp on the edge, almost like pinching your balloon close. And so when it's still open, but what happens is when the particles try to escape, they follow the magnetic field path and they circle back in. And they get trapped in this magnetic mirror, bouncing back and forth. So the fact that I'm reading this, where this guy was already working on magnetic mirror type concept, 1960, I know right away, just listening to this, I'm going, okay, this has got to be similar to the field reverse configuration that we've been talking about. I mean, it's got to be, right? Like, it's got magnetic mirrors in it. I mean, okay, keep going. And he says, we're going to trap the electrons in the center of the chamber with this magnetic mirror. These electrons trapped in the center of the mirror would create a deep negative electric potential, forming a virtual cathode. Positively charged ions attracted to this negative region would fall into the well, gain speed, and collide at high energies. It's not a fuser. It's a magnetic electrostatic fusion device, and it works. Quote, unquote, Dr. Robert W. Bussard. Crucially, the polywell had no physical grid inside the plasma. Unlike earlier electrostatic fusion devices like Farnsworth fuser, which is what it's based on, which lost efficiency because ions struck a metal grid, the polywell's virtual cathode was formed purely by electrons, avoiding those collisions and their associated energy losses. The magnetic coils were arranged at the faces of a cube, producing cusp regions at the edges and the corners. At high plasma pressures, once I saw this, I knew where this was going. High plasma pressures. The moment you start talking to me about plasma pressure, chat, I'm going to start talking about beta. Let's listen to what it says. At high plasma pressures, Bussard argued, the internal plasma could push out against the magnetic field. Now you're definitely talking about it. A phenomenon known as the high beta effect. Boom! There it is. You had to get halfway through this article, and there it is. Boom. And trap itself more effectively. So, what did we just learn? Now, I've changed my mind. I think that what's inside the orb is a cube. I think that is a polyhedral shape. I'm not even going to say cube. It's a polyhedral shape of donuts connected on top of each other. All different directions that create cusps. And the magnetic fields just shoot out the particles axially in one direction or another. And the reason for this is because this is what would create a spherical plasma. Because you can imagine the plasma all around the cube. But the superconducting toroidal magnets that you use would prevent the plasma from actually touching the surface of any of the device, of any of the electronics. We're not going to watch that video tonight. We're going to watch it either tomorrow or on Wednesday. But in that video, Bussard says specifically that they changed the configuration of the polyhedral to avoid any of the plasma touching any of the components. Specifically. So this is where I go to Bob Grenier, who I hope watches this, and I say, I don't think those are fully autonomous. I mean, they are drones and autonomous, but I don't think they're just plasma, those orbs in that video. I do think it's possible to produce just plasma orbs, but that's not what I think those orbs in the MH370 videos are. So this opens the door to many different types of possible plasma configurations that could possibly exist. And this connects, I saw people saying it's sacred geometry. The letter to Ashton Forbes. I can't stop thinking about it. Let me pull this up. So I'm going to pull up the WB1 polywell or WB polywell, and I'll show the images up here. There you go. This is what I just described looks like. If you're just listening because you're on the audio, I'll describe what we're looking at here. The WB polywell looks like a series of donut-shaped metal rings that are connected on their vertices so that it creates a cube. Or specifically, you could say a polyhedral. Because in theory, you could create different shapes out of these. It wouldn't just have to be a polyhedral. And the reason why we're doing this is exactly what Bussard, what it says in that article we were reading. It says right in there that this creates a negative energy well, or let's say negatively charged well in the center of this device. And if you have a negative charge in the center of this device, the positive charge is going to get attracted to it, just like you see in the images on the screen here. And when I started to think about this, I went, wow, this almost, if you could describe this, if I was going to describe this to somebody in terms of what we did here with this device, I would say we took a monostructure. The monostructure is your toroid, your ring, and we created with that monostructure a multi-structure, a polyhedral object. Combine monostructures, and you have the recipe for an unlimited energy source that will last forever. That's what the letter to Ashton Forbes said to me. And now I'm sitting here looking at exactly what that letter to Ashton Forbes was describing. Let me see if I can find that real quick for you guys. Here we go.
Products or application you are now working on is correctly based on superconductivity. The number of orbs you've been speculating about is correct. The fourth orb decides where the object ends up. The technology is based on structures, simple and beautiful structures that lets us use the unlimited power that is everywhere and step outside what I would like to describe as perceived reality.
Yeah. Okay. And just quick reference I'll make here. I am going to invest in every company that's doing high beta. High beta is the answer. That's how you move from tokamak stupidity to, elite level actually being able to produce fusion. So right now, the only option is DJT, which I've invested in. Helium Fusion goes IPO, I'll invest in them as well. This company, I don't even know what this company is, but if I can invest in this company, I'll probably try to find a way to do that as well. Okay, let's go back to the task at hand here. Back to the article. But I just wanted to point this out because I think I'm trying to make the case best I can that what we're looking at here is at minimum. I'm not saying that this is exactly the orbs, but this is the technology and the research that was the precursor to them building the orbs, which are, in my opinion, a high beta proton boron 11A neutronic fusion. I don't think they're using DD fusion in those videos, although I'm not even really sure how I could tell the difference. Okay, here we go. So we said how the orbs were set up, high beta effect, and then the virtual cathode. When the polywell operates, the electron beams inject high-speed electrons into a magnetic field structure. These electrons become trapped in the central region, bouncing between the magnetic cusps and forming a negatively charged well. So when we say virtual cathode, what we're saying is you're going to have one negatively charged thing over here, and you're going to have cathode and anode, one positive and one minus. So what we're saying is that you're making one half of one end of a battery, right? One end of a battery is positive, one end of a battery is negative. You're making a really powerful negative in the middle of your cube. You built your cube. In the middle of that, you got this super powerful negative. And this is good because in fusion, we're trying to make two positives, two ions. We want those two positives to collide. Well, what better than having a well of negative charge? Because now you're going to have those positive ions just shooting right at it. Boom. That's our goal. So you can already just see conceptually how this could help. And what I just described to you is called inertial electrostatic confined fusion, IEC fusion. Why not combine them? Why not combine the benefits of the field reverse configuration using the superconducting magnets to create your plasmoid, combine that with electrical engineering, having your negative potential well. Do both. In fact, if you do both, now maybe we can get over that hurdle where we weren't able to get over. We couldn't get these high energy levels that we needed. Well, maybe this, combining both these together, we'll get to that. At this point, I'm ready to say if TAE and Helion are not at least thinking about this, they should be. They should be. There's no reason why they shouldn't be thinking about producing this negative voltage well. And maybe that is non-equilibrium. Maybe that's the definition of your non-equilibrium plasma. I'm not sure. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so this, he says, increases the strength of the magnetic cusp confinement with electrostatic acceleration. Moreover, and he calls it the wiffle ball configuration. Why? Because it looks like, if you were to look at the device, it's a cube with a bunch of holes in it. So it looks like a wiffle ball. If you guys don't know what a wiffle ball is, it's just a ball with a bunch of holes in it. It looks like Swiss cheese. Okay. So they built 6 different reactors. By the early 2000s, the WB6 device showed promising results. Billions of fusion reactions per second using deuterium fuel. And it was using lower voltages as well. Now, this here, multiple things I have to point out. One, the timeline matches. That's the timeline. If I'm looking for a company that helped build the orbs, they've got to be working on this technology in the 2000s. There you have it right there. In fact, they have like 8 years to take this technology and turn it into the orbs you see in the MH370 videos in 2014. In 2014. We got fusion to work. Another direct quote from the guy. With a device about yay big and yay big around, it can make more neutrons per unit well voltage than anybody had ever done in an IEC fusion machine. And it was only 30 to 40 centimeters. The other thing about this is tiny, guys. This is something that I heard Devin Nunes talking about, which is that these devices are not going to be huge nuclear power plants. These devices are going to be relatively small. In the lecture that I watched, one of the Yahtzee moments is he says, did I record that? I think I recorded it. Hold on. He might say it in one of these. I'm going to play one of these clips here for us just to break up the content a little bit here. In one of the clips, he says, these things need to be of a certain size. They have to be so big in order to get it to work. But they also don't need to be any bigger than that because there's not any efficiency gained, essentially. And the size that he says is roughly 2 to 2.5 meters radius. So if I'm just adding that up, that's about 5 meters diameter. 4 to 5 meters in diameter. That is the exact size of the orbs in the MH370 videos. And the crazy part about it is that he says, he's essentially saying that this is the optimal size for these fusion reactors that he's building with this WB1 or whatever, polywell device. So this is another thing where you realize that the physics, when you make a fake video, the physics never ends up working out. But when a video is real, and especially when it's showing scientific experimentation, there are going to be physics reasons why it has to be real, why it has to be legit. And this is potentially one of those reasons, which is that the orbs being roughly 18 to 20 feet in diameter might be some optimal size for fusion reactors in our macroscopic reality. They can't be any smaller because they don't produce enough energy. And they don't need to be bigger because you're not getting any efficiency gain for making it any bigger. Instead of making it bigger, you just make another one. If that ends up being real, that will be pretty wild. So let's go play this clip. because this is the man himself. This is him. This is apparently a famous. I
Impediment has
don't
always
know
been
the
money.
lore. I don't know the history of TED Talks. Did TED Talks start as like talks that they did at Google? Because this is a talk that Robert Bussard was brought into Google to all their super engineers in 2006 and asked to tell them about this device. And a lot of them left in the middle of it. And I'm sitting here going, these people are, dude, I don't think they knew who this guy was. Anyway, here we go.
Impediment has always been money. We've told the Navy and the DoD since 1989 that the cost of this program in today's dollars is $200 million. We've had it in report after report after report. And they knew that. And they knew that from the beginning. And they said, we can't do that. Why can't you do that? Because if we do that, I'll tell you the story. If you do that, it becomes visible to the staffers on Capitol Hill. It's a big enough budget item that people see it. Once it becomes visible to the Capitol Hill staffers, everybody on Capitol Hill knows that this is what the Navy is doing. The DOE will see it. The DOE will say, no, you can't do that. We have the charter to do fusion. And that's the end of the program.
What? I feel like I'm watching secret files that I shouldn't be watching. And this is a video where they were at Google. That's just a little taste for you guys, because we're not going to have time tonight to watch the whole video. I want to watch the whole video of that guy. In the middle of his presentation, he's like, so yeah, we were working for the Navy and the DoD, and we were like, hey, you want to spend $200 million and make some dope-ass fusion reactors? And they said no. And he said, and you know why? It was about money. And you know what their rationale was? And this is him just openly saying this. He goes, this is because it would draw too much attention. If we sign on for a $200 million fusion propulsion deal, the DOE is going to step in and shut us down. The DOE is going to step in and say, we have the charter with the government to do fusion, and nobody else is allowed to do fusion. That is fucking insane to me. Why would you shut down fusion research? Why would people expect to have their fusion research shut down? I feel like this is scaring me a little bit. Where he's just openly like, yeah, they were like, no, we can't do that. DOE will come in and shut us down. The Navy told you that the DOE will come in and shut them down if they do that? How long have they been hiding this? How long? This is the thing I gotta know. I'm either going to get killed and go to my grave, or I'm going to find out how long we've been hiding these goddamn fusion orbs. Because I can't decide if the science comes to where we built them in the early 2000s right after this, or if we've had this for even before this, and the DOE's had it, and they've just not let anybody else get close to it. And anybody else, anytime somebody gets close to it, they just shut it down. Sorry, no fusion for you. And I'm leaning towards the latter. And if you want to know why I'm leaning towards the latter, I'm leaning towards the latter because the orbs in the MH370 videos are perfect. They're like a work of fucking art. You see the orbs in MH370s, and yes, they kind of like the orb, kind of changes its shape a little bit when it's flying around. But for the most part, that heat signature in there is just static. Like, compare it to the video that Congressman Burleson released of the plasma flying along the water or whatever. That's probably like North Korea or China, because it's janky as shit. They're janky-ass plasma orbs. It's like special needs plasma orb, right? It's like, oh, I'm all over the place. Our plasma orbs are stable, perfectly spherical. And they don't mind going hundreds of miles an hour. It doesn't even mess it up. North Korea plasma orbs are, they're special needs. They got some abnormalities. They got some birth defects in their plasma orbs. So I guess what I'm saying is that those plasma orbs are too damn perfect. People ask me, why are they testing this technology on this airplane? Are you guys crazy, man? Testing? You don't think they tested these orbs like 1,000 times before this? There's ain't no way in hell that's the first rodeo, bro. They're not breaking out CIA special operations with Air Force Gorgon stare video drone from above for a test. Oh, maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll work on our super secret covert operation. No. When you're doing a super secret covert operation, like everything's planned to the T. There's no question marks. Well, maybe it'll disappear. Maybe it'll come back. Right, guys? Come on. Okay. Let's get back to it. I'm getting off topic here. So anyway, let's let him finish his thought here.
Because they were co-opted and shut the Navy down. So the Navy had to fund us at a low level, below the radar screen of politics. And that's exactly what happened. And it's nature, it's life.
It's nature, it's life. That's exactly what happened, he said. He's like, yeah, I mean, look, Navy tries to do fusion. These guys step in. I got to talk to Salvatore Pais again, by the way. This guy worked in the Navy. He was building plasma fusion orbs. I'm going to call them orbs because it's a spherical plasma this guy's making for the Navy. And he sounds just like Ken Shoulders, who was working on EVOs. I mean, what is going on with Sal here? Like, is the Navy in some weird shadow war with the DOE over building fusion research? Because didn't Sal also have a fusion reactor? Sal has his own fusion reactor that's a little bit similar to this. In fact, if you guys look up right now, the fusion reactor that Sal's patent is, it's like 4 arrows pointed inward. Similar concept, although I suppose they all are, to the Polywell device. So let's go back to the Polywell device, guys. Fuel choices, because now, guys, I was reading this on Saturday night, and I'm sitting here going, what the hell did we just find? Let's listen to the next sentence. By the way, yeah, let me repeat this. The origin of this Polywell device is Philo Farnsworth, the guy that invented the television. Philo Farnsworth, the Farnsworth fuser, is the technical origin of this device, according to Bussard. Bussard says he basically took the Farnsworth Philo and took it to this next level. Wow. I mean, you could draw a straight line from the development directly from the television, possibly to the plasma orbs in the MH370 videos. How dope will that be? How dope will it be one day if we can draw a straight line, television to Farnsworth fuser, to like Bussard Ramjet engine, to MH370 being teleported by some plasma orbs. Can you imagine if children are being taught that in like 50 years? What a world. And then they're going to watch these, see all my shit posts and all my troll streams. I don't know what those kids are going to think. Okay. Bussard dreamed of a fusion future powered by proton boron 11 reactions. I need the Chick-fil-A lady. What are we talking about here? Proton boron 11 right there. He says, unlike deuterium-tritium reactions and tokamaks, proton boron 11 produces no neutrons. Yeah, it's called aneutronic fusion. And no radioactive waste, just clean helium. But the proton boron 11 reactions require extremely high temperatures or voltages to ignite, making it far more challenging than DT fusion. Also suffers from high Bremslung radiation losses, where high energy electrons emit X-rays when they decelerate. So I went on this whole side quest. I'm not going to go on it tonight, where the magnetic funnel would actually be where you would see the black lines coming out, because that's where the charged particles are being decelerated in those magnetic fields. So this can also then explain the black lines that we're seeing. It doesn't necessarily have to be X-rays, but I'm pretty sure that it is. Bussard believed that the Polywell's non-thermal distribution of ion energies, unlike the evenly heated plasmas and tokamaks, could mitigate Bremslung losses. Oh, shit, chat. I read this part. This is a true story. And I immediately went to my email. And I said, where is the most recent email from Salvatore Pais? And I said, reply. I said, when can you come on my show to talk about Bussard's Ramjet engine? Because what does this mean right here that we're reading? Non-thermal distribution. Okay, everybody. Even if you are a noob when it comes to science, you are about to learn something new right now. Non-thermal distribution refers to a non-Maxwellian Boltzmann distribution. This is a temperature graph of ions. They use it to determine the optimal temperature to get fusion reactions to happen. So when you say it's a what is the exact quote? Non-thermal distribution, you're saying it doesn't obey that curve, that famous curve for the Maxwellian Boltzmann distribution. And the first person who told me about this was Salvatore Pais. He said that you call a plasma a non-thermal plasma that doesn't obey a Maxwellian Boltzmann distribution, you call it a cold plasma. You call it a cold plasma. Non-equilibrium, non-thermal plasma. And Sal said specifically that this is the kind of plasma you need if you want to start to manipulate space-time. So, while I'm looking at this, and I see right here that he says the key here is that the temperatures are not evenly distributed. In the tokamaks, the plasma temperatures are evenly distributed. But in this device, they're not. And this could mitigate Bremsstrahlung radiation losses. So it turns out, I think we also heard David Kirkley talking about this, non-equilibrium. There's another reason for the non-equilibrium temperatures. Mitigates the Bremsstrahlung radiation losses. So it mitigates your losses. And there's some video out there, I don't remember where Paul Sis was talking about having all this stuff solved. They knew all these problems, but they were able to solve them. They're not unsolvable problems. Okay. So another technical hurdle was confinement. Ions and electrons could escape through the magnetic cusps. Bussard argued that the high beta operation, this loss could be dramatically reduced. But engineering those conditions, maintaining the electron injection and preventing power loss through arcing and coil failure remain major obstacles. So we know they solved this problem. That's what the magnetic mirror does. The magnetic mirror makes it so that they're not going to escape through those cusps. Okay. So let's see. Okay, let's go to the Final Crusade part. So in the early 2000s was kind of the end of all this. Bussard passed away in 2007. I believe he passed away. He gave the now famous Google talk titled Should Google Go Nuclear 2006. Is that the one we were just looking at? I'm pretty sure that's the one we were just looking at. Where he outlined his design and argued passionately that the physics was solved. Again, people don't listen. He comes out and he says, we've got fusion, works. We've solved the physics. And I watched the whole video. We're going to watch it later. But he says in the video, we don't need anyone to figure out how the physics works. We've already done that. What we need is the money to build it now. We just need to apply it, and we just need to build it, and it'll work. We've got all the physics ready to go. They had been working on the physics for 12 years. Now, if you think the U.S. government didn't do anything with this, you're probably really naive. And they were only looking for $100 million. This is not a crazy amount. $100 million to $200 million, especially in the early 2000s for Google, that's nothing. I'm actually surprised Google didn't jump on this. I think fusion will save the world, and if we don't get it, we're not going to make it. Chat, he's radicalizing me. Chat, I'm becoming a radical. I don't think we're going to make it without fusion either. And I don't know if we're going to make it even with fusion. That's where I'm at. But I have the benefit of another, 20 years past Dr. Bussard. He also reached out to the broader public, letters. So he was out there reaching out to people. People say, if this stuff was real, why don't we have it? How come people aren't there trying to sell it, trying to push it? They were. It just seems to never work out. There's always some roadblock that gets in the way and prevents it from happening. And that's why I'm here. So, sadly, he passed away 2007, shortly after the Navy awarded a small contract to continue the Polywell development. He never saw his vision reach the next level. But his final years were marked by tireless advocacy and the belief that fusion power could still save the planet. Bussard's legacy, his story, is one of relentless innovation, scientific courage, and devotion to a cause, from nuclear rockets to interstellar propulsion, from government programs to a garage-sized fusion lab. He never stopped thinking big. His ideas, especially the Bussard Ramjet and the Polywell, continue to influence both serious research and public imagination. Today, startups and labs pursuing alternative fusion concepts often cite Bussard as a pioneer who dared to challenge the orthodoxy. He once said, "Fusion works. Just look up at the night sky." To him, the challenge was not whether or not fusion could happen. It already does in every star. But whether or not humans could tame it on Earth, that challenge remains. But thanks to Robert Bussard, the path forward is at least a little clearer. Shout out to Tim Ventura for that amazing article. His articles are really good when it comes to the science, and he's talked to a lot of the people that have worked on it. So, which I think I clicked on one of these. Excuse me. But here you can see high energy electron confinement and a magnetic cusp configuration. Here you go. This is one of the people that carried on his work. So his work did not stop, but Park, I think, is one of the doctors or one of the engineers who continue to work on his stuff. Now, let me go ahead and show you this. I meant to show you this earlier here. If I switch this. Let's go to the window. I want you guys to learn non-thermal ion energy. This is that non-thermal distribution that was being talked about. Means ions that don't follow the typical Maxwell-Boltzmann thermal curve, often showing energy tails or unusual shapes like ring-like structures due to processes like magnetic reconnection. You want another weird connection here? Who was researching magnetic reconnection right before he died? Nuno Loureiro, the MIT fusion scientist, apparently his focus was on magnetic reconnection. And it might turn out magnetic reconnection could be a huge aspect to this fusion science. Anyway, just think that's interesting. So, so the idea that he's doing here, just to recap this, I think I have some, yeah, there it is. Boom. There's the image. I had it ready to go. The idea of the fusion reactor is combine the best of magneto-inertial confinement, not using lasers, just using magnetism, so superconducting magnets in a geometrical pattern, polyhedral pattern. Combine that with the idea of the plasma itself, this idea that we can separate the electrons and the electrons and the ions, the negatives and the positives, and we can trap the negatives in the middle. If we trap the negatives in the middle of our device, that will cause the positives, the ions, to attract towards the middle, which is what we want them to do. We want our ions to come together so they can fuse. Combine the best of both of those worlds, and what do you get? You get a cube inside of a sphere. A cube inside of a sphere, chat. That's a cube, or a polyhedral, maybe an octagon. So now when we start to hear from the alien heads, the ones that want to sexually assault the aliens and what have you, they're obsessed with them. When we hear them talking about octagons and hexagon-shaped drones and orbs and things like that, now we know the reason why. Because the secret is polyhedral shapes and geometry and toroidal shapes to control your electromagnetic fields. Combine your donuts. Combine your tokamaks together. Make it so that the magnetic fields expel the plasma so that the plasma never touches your surfaces. And have it create a bubble of plasma, which also now reduces your drag. And now you've got a plasma orb. The shape being polygonal is probably the biggest Yahtzee tonight. We're going to listen to a couple clips from that interview with Tim Ventura. The reason why that's the biggest Yahtzee is I think that whatever shape is inside of the plasma orbs in MH370, I'm now moving towards it being symmetrical. Symmetrical shaped object. It could still be like a cylinder shape, which is what I was suspecting earlier, like cut rings magnets like the Lockheed Martin one. But now I'm starting to think it's actually just something like this, where it's just a cube with a bunch of toroids on either end that are creating this negative potential well in the center. And that we just can't see through the spherical plasma on the outside that's being produced by this. And this is how you can imagine even easily how this could produce a sphere, because the plasma is going to be leaking in every direction. And the plasma leaks out of this in every direction, that's going to produce a sphere. But if you had a tube, you wouldn't probably get a spherical shaped plasma. You would probably get something that's more elongated, like a hot dog. Which is why I'm now moving towards a design like this as to being what's inside the MH370 videos. Okay. Let's see what else I've got here. I don't even remember what this one is. Let's look at this one. Oh, this is the Advanced Propulsion Research Study. Okay. So, oh, yes, I had that open, but I had to restart. Okay, there was something else I wanted to read then. So let's read one more thing. Where is that? My whole computer crashed, so let me find where I put that. I guess that's probably going to work. I think this is the one, right? Yeah, okay. So let me share this now. So I started digging around, started looking at references. I asked Grok, like I told you guys, I said, show me the references for Bussard's engine in, if there are any for Eric W. Davis. And of course, there was one. Here you go. Look at this. The IEC concept. Ion acceleration by electron injection driven negative potential well maintained in polyhedral magnetic field. Well, there you go. There's a whole chapter, a literal whole chapter in Eric W. Davis's scientific paper. Okay, let's go to page 43. Okay, well, I mean, what just happened there? Okay, there we go. We're back. Okay, page 43. Where's the part? Oh, wait. Okay, that's not the real page 43. Oh, and there's Lycaboo's, what's his face? We reviewed him. Okay, this is the part I wanted right here. Okay, I'm going to read this part to you guys. So this is Eric W. Davis's, like 2004 paper here. You guys, if you don't know why Eric W. Davis is like one of the GOATs, then just look him up. Look up, start reading his papers. Warp drives, wormholes, extracting quantum energy. The dude knows, he's actually somebody who reads. Like the difference between, compare Eric Weinstein and Eric Davis. Eric Davis knows every reference for every physics paper ever out there because he's read them all. That's the difference. Okay. Can I skip the first long paragraph here? Okay. This is a propulsion concept that is based on a form of nuclear fusion. Okay, I'm in. There are numerous schemes and devices that have been built and tested to explore the production and extraction of fusion energy for commercial electrical and space propulsion and power applications. This is written by Eric W. Davis. None of the space propulsion designs have any relevance to launch vehicle applications. Plasma fusion confinement approaches for space propulsion or power applications include the field reverse configuration, tandem mirror, spherical tokamak, inertial confinement fusion, dense plasma focus, and magnetically insulated inertial confinement fusion. Well, a few of those, wow. The fact that Eric Davis wrote this in like 2004, and he was talking about field reverse configuration fusion probably a decade before helium fusion even existed, goes to show that he's very well researched. Okay. These approaches reduce or practically eliminate the confounding plasma confinement problem that has plagued fusion reactors for years. However, all of these approaches still suffer from extremely low reactor power-to-weight ratios due to bulky magnetic components, heavy power compression and catalyst drivers, and other massive structural components. These reactors use heavy hydrogen fuels, and they appear only marginally able to burn advanced fuels, as in aneutronic fuels. That is because the strong radiation emission from the thermalized ion energy distribution in the plasma. Well, if you're telling me the reason why they can only burn that is because there's a thermal equilibrium, a Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution, well, we know what the answer is now. Do a non-equilibrium plasma if you want to get around that. The desirable advanced fusion fuel reactions yield only charged particle products, such that they produce no radiation hazards from energetic neutrons that are always produced by reactions using deuterium fuel mixes. So we've said it a million times, aneutronic fusion is the GOAT. Aneutronic fusion is the GOAT, also known as advanced fusion fuels, because they don't release neutrons. They don't release radiation. A novel new fusion confinement concept called the quiet electric discharge inertial electrostatic confinement fusion was developed for the purpose of realizing a high-performance fusion rocket engine that simultaneously possessed high thrust to mass ratios and high specific impulse. Okay, I'm going to skip through part of this. Blah, blah, blah. They call it that. Okay, an IEC fusion power source can attain very high power-to-weight ratios because it does not require heavy magnetic components, high-powered drivers, and the other massive structural radioactive shielding components that are normally required. An additional but very important feature of IEC devices, they possess excellent efficiency for burning advanced fuels as a result of the highly non-Maxwellian energy distribution attained by the reacting ions. That is the secret right there. If you ever want fusion to work correctly, you cannot throw away electricity. Inertial electrostatic fusion is essentially using positive and negative charges to get fusion to work. The reason why this is so big, this answers why we haven't been able to get fusion to work. Because physics hasn't realized that electricity is the grand unifier. Electromagnetism and gravity can be unified together by using electricity. So if you discount half of the equation, you're never going to get a good cake. If you only have half the ingredients, chat, your cake is going to taste like garbage every time. And he says, here are the fusion fuels. Number 1 is proton boron 11. We can see it right there. Number 2 is lithium 6. Proton lithium 6 is the second fusion fuel. Number 3, these actually aren't the fuels. These are the reactions. Third reaction is helium 3 mixed with lithium 6. Now, by the way, this is every aneutronic fusion reaction right here. Pay attention. Deuterium lithium 6, deuterium helium 3, and helium 3 helium 3. So you can see why helium 3 would be beneficial. It's used in more than half the reactions. It should be noted that reactions 1 and 2 are actually thermonuclear fission reactions. What? What? It should be noted that reactions 1 and 2 are actually thermonuclear fission reactions. Number 1 and 2 are fusion bombs. That's what that's saying right there. And number 1 is proton boron 11. And number 2 is proton lithium 6. Wow. One of these might literally be the reaction that zapped MH370 out of the sky, by the way. Could be. I don't know for sure. Okay, let's keep going. All of the above reactions are super clean with respect to radioactivity, such that the relative radioactivity present in the reaction systems is 0. Therefore, no bulky massive shield. So what are we hearing here? Why is this so big? Why is aneutronic fusion so important? you can make the weight of your craft a lot lighter. There is no way the orbs are doing neutronic fusion. It's got to be aneutronic. The reason being that your orb can't risk falling apart mid-flight. That orb needs to be able to fly around for as long as it needs to be able to fly around until it zaps its target out of the sky. And you can't have radiation damaging your electronic components, causing the orb to just crash to the ground. So it must be aneutronic. Those orbs must be using aneutronic fusion, which means they almost are certainly using boron-11. Almost certainly. They could be using helium-3, but they must be using one of those reactions we just saw on the screen. Has to be. Because if they were neutronic, they would need a lot more heavier components. They wouldn't be able to fly. You need your stuff to be as light as possible. Here we go. Okay. I'm trying to skip through the stuff that's kind of redundant at this point because I've said it a few times. So also this is direct energy conversion. So here you go. It says the charged particle reaction products can be captured by the external magnetic field and directly converted to electrical power. Or they could be used to directly heat and expand propellant, which could be used as well. The IEC-IEF concept was originally pioneered by Farnsworth, as in Philo Farnsworth, and became largely dormant for over 2 decades, but it was later revived and revised by Bussard and his co-workers, 1989 through 1997. And then later on through about the 2000s, and then this is the name I saw, boom, here it was, Froning and Bussard. As in David Froning and Bussard. The David Froning that's on the advanced dense plasma focused drone paper that they were working on, that same David Froning, he worked with him. They were co-authoring papers together, and then we weren't done yet. And look at these references right here. George Miley. George Miley also worked on him with it. What are the odds, chat? What are the odds that all of the engineers that we've been researching, that we've been investigating, that wrote the DIRDs, chat, are all somehow connected directly to Bussard? All the people that wrote the scientific papers that explain the teleportation, the orbs, the fusion reactions, negative matter, negative mass propulsion, they're all connected? Weird. This is where I tell people, like, okay, man, you don't have to believe it, but I can draw a direct line from the guy that made the television to the orbs that we're looking in the MH370 videos just based on this one paragraph. And this is why when people say, where's the science? Eric Davis says, nobody reads my papers. If anybody just read this paper, you can just look at the names, look at the research, look at the references on here. It's a lot. It's undeniable. Okay. The IEC fusion device is a spherical vacuum vessel that uses quasi-spherical polyhedral magnetic fields to confine electrons, which are injected into the vessel at high velocity in order to form a negative electric potential well that confines fusion ions into a spherically converging flow. And again, so why is the orb spherical? Because we're having this spherical convergence towards the middle. So even more, I'm pretty much convinced that we're looking at some design that was based off of this. Energetic fusion ions are generated by a plasma discharge and injected into the potential well near its boundary, where they're accelerated radially towards the center and oscillate across the vessel with the central core plasma density increasing rapidly. Okay. Let's see what we got here. So it creates a dense plasma, high voltage power production. I think I wanted to read like 1 or 2 more paragraphs here. Yeah. Bussard discovered that the easiest fusion products to direct convert are those of the reaction number 1, which is proton boron 11, because the helium-4 particles have well-defined discrete energies. So this is why they honed in on proton boron 11. It was the easiest one to do aneutronic fusion with. The electric field deceleration requires retarding potential. Okay, let's see what we got here. The IEC systems only need to be 1 to 2 meters larger in diameter than the size required for producing the controlled fusion process. There it is right there. There it is right there, chat. Your fusion reactor doesn't need to be that large because the actual confinement's happening in the middle of this cube that we've created. We created this middle of this cube. So this explains why these orbs are the size that they are. And so you can see here, to convert this spread of ion energies will require the use of numerous additional collection grids or plates, which will increase the system's overall radial dimensions to 5 to 10 meters. That's the diameter or radial dimension. Okay, let's see what else he said here. Miley proposed an IEC direct conversion propulsion system that runs on reaction number 5 and operates in a pulsed power mode as an efficient way to decrease the collector grid heating. I'm pretty sure this is helium-3, right? Number 5. Yeah. Number 5 is deuterium helium-3. So the version that we've been looking at with Helion Energy is this. Pulse power, helium-3. So Miley might actually know about helium fusions thing based on just reading this right here. Pulse power operation has the advantage that the high peak currents result in high fusion energy gain for an IEC device due to a highly nonlinear scaling of the fusion rate with the ion current. Okay, so Miley did a bunch of research in this. The problem is that helium-3 is only on the moon. We only have a little bit of it. I think that's it. Was there one more thing I wanted to see? I think that's pretty good for this part. Okay, let's go back to the interview and let's listen to this more. I've done too much work here, but this is the idea of what it would look like, you see. So you can imagine you have this plasma orb on the outside, this spherical plasma orb. We're looking at an image here of a spherical plasma orb, and you can see the plasma escaping from the central fuser device, which is a polyhedral device, and that creates a sphere around your object. So you would have a polyhedral on the inside that's using superconducting magnets and some electronical equipment, which can be very tiny. And then on the outside, you're going to have a plasma sphere that's going to encompass it entirely. And now you've created basically like a plasma balloon drone that can fly around, do whatever you wanted to do. And so there's some more diagrams here. I think it's pretty cool. So anyway, this paper, this is actually Eric W. Davis's paper here that I'm showing you guys. And that paper elaborately goes over his work for like 5 pages. Like 5 pages straight, maybe even longer than that. So let's listen to the man himself, because not only was his documentation, not only was his work good, the guy is actually just telling us really useful information in his interviews. So I want to learn something myself tonight. So the first clip that we're going to watch, I noticed when I hovered over these, one of them said cold fusion. There it is right there. Let's listen. Let's start right here.
Looking at it. Well, will the availability of deuterium or other nuclear fuels be a limiting factor?
Oh, Lord, no. Deuterium is 1 part in 6,000 in every piece of water on the Earth. I mean, it's just inexhaustible, 10 billion years worth of supply. And boron, if you do hydrogen boron is the 10th most populous element in seawater. And there already exist processes to extract it cheaply. There's enough boron in the oceans to last several billion years. I mean, and hydrogen is the basis of water, H2O. There's enough of that forever. And it's a fuel that is cheap, it's essentially free, and it can't be carteled. Nobody can control it.
Well, I'd also like to ask about your thoughts on...
I don't want to go full conspiratard, but I feel like this guy died like 1 year after he did that talk. And right here, whenever free energy, let's just call them free energy scientists or fusion scientists, start talking about there's no way for the cartels to own it. There's no way for the cartels to own hydrogen or boron because there's basically like enough for billions and billions of years on this earth. It's basically as free as anything could possibly get. Generally, their life expectancy gets cut down by about half whenever you start making those proclamations on podcasts and what have you. So if you are fusion engineer, specifically a neutronic fusion engineer. I'm not saying keep your lips shut. I'm just saying, just be careful. Just be careful. I want you to stay around as long as possible.
Alternative nuclear theories, such as cold fusion, bubble fusion, and there are a bunch of concepts that really they're not easily quantifiable, I guess. Like Dr. Ruggero Santilli's claim that it's possible to generate neutrons. Do you have any thoughts on these?
I have thoughts. I'm not deadly familiar with them, but I'm looking at them, reading about them, and seeing about them. There are a lot of ways that one can make neutrons at very low levels, which have no possible way to go beyond low levels. Cold fusion is one of them. Indeed, in lattices, you can in fact make little fusion reactions occur. It's just you can't ever make them occur at a level of any interest in the sense of the power, world of power. Steve Jones at Brigham Young University, quite apart from Pons and Fleischmann, was working on this long before Pons and Fleischmann. It was perfectly good microphysics. The bubble fusion thing, I'm not so sure that really is a real effect, but if it is, it's going to be a very small effect like all the rest of it. Anything there are little oddities like that in the world that can make a few neutrons, but they don't scale anywhere. You can't make them go anywhere.
Yeah, Santilli's.
Interesting. So he doesn't poo-poo it. He basically just says that, of course, people were already working on this way before that. That was just a media thing. And that's kind of how I would expect somebody to react who actually is on the inside and they know what it looks like. I want to jump real quick because I just found my Grok chat here. I want to pull this up, show you guys the references. So here's the Grok references that I was mentioning before. I said, search all of Hal Puthoff's and Eric W. Davis's scientific papers for references to Bussard. And then we found that one that we were just looking at, Advanced Propulsion Study 2004. That's the one that we were looking at. I do want to point out here that it says right here, Bussard and Miley and their coworkers discovered a way to configure the IEC device for electric power and space propulsion applications using modern engineering physics and materials technology. So it was left dormant, but these guys ended up figuring out how to make it work. And right there it just says Bussard and George Miley. What are those modern techniques? Probably superconducting magnets, considering those are like the biggest piece of these fusion devices. Superconducting magnets are like the most critical piece of these things, and you want your magnet to be as lightweight as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that those were the innovations that they needed. What else did I see here? So he cites Bussard about 1 million times, but this was my favorite part. There was nothing on Hal Puthoff, weirdly. Nothing referenced Hal Puthoff, or at least none of the papers that Grok could find. Doesn't mean it's accurate. Could be wrong. Where was it? What does he say here? Oh wait, that's TAEs and tri-alpha energies. So I did a comparison there. Wait, where's my Paul Sis comparison? Okay, never mind. Hold up, chat. Let's go back to that. I thought I found it. This wasn't the right one. Let's go back to our previous one. Okay. Let's listen to. We already know about IEC fusion, DD fusion. Probably this Department of Energy stuff. I want to listen to this part here. Progress.
People working in the laboratory in that time, and we have tested 15 different versions of these machines, and we have managed to lay out and define and understand and find the scaling laws for 19 different critical physics issues, one at a time. It's been a very long and tedious process because our funding was always very small compared to what the need for funding was, and that's a result of the fact that the Navy, which supported us, really couldn't ever put the right amount of money in, even though we knew what it was from the beginning, and so did they, because that would have been too large a sum of money for the budget people on Capitol Hill, and it would have become visible to the DOE, and they would have complained about it. And so the general funding political situation in Washington said, we can only fund you at a small level. Can you?
I mean, he just said it again in this interview right there. He just says they could only fund at a small level because once you start funding them too much and then the DOE finds out what you're doing, they're going to come in and shut you down. How are they just openly talking about this? And people are like, oh, no, there's no fusion scandal here. People are deathly afraid of doing fusion research because the DOE is going to show up and shut them down. And they're just talking about it openly. I mean, this guy's a legendary engineer that worked at DOE labs, and he's talking about this.
Do anything with that? Well, we did. We took us 20 years And as I say, all that effort and time. But we did finally succeed in solving the last basic physics problem in the last test we did in 2005. All the physics is done. All the basic physics is done. We're ready to do engineering development now.
Now, the Navy discontinued funding for your project, and I'm wondering what their reasoning was, given over 20 years of support for it. Were they politically motivated in this?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's any conspiracy theory here. Well, the reason our funding died was not because the Navy did anything evil. It's because of the Iraq War. The Iraq War budgets have been just consuming everything in sight.
Okay, I found it. Found it for real. Here you go, chat. So so this might have been last night. So after I did the whole deep dive for Eric W. Davis, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, what about Paul Sizz? I was like, Paul Sizz might be the #1 hypersonic engineer that the world has no idea ever existed. And so I said, did Paul Sizz ever talk about or reference Dr. Robert Bussard? And Grok said, yes, Paul Sizz referenced Dr. Robert Bussard multiple times in his work on advanced propulsion systems. For instance, in a co-authored publications, The Interstellar Ramjet, Sizz discussed Bussard's 1960 proposal for using interstellar hydrogen as fuel for rocket-powered spacecraft. This concept is also covered in their book, Future Spacecraft Propulsion Systems and Integration, where Bussard's contributions to nuclear electric propulsion, inertial electrostatic confinement fusion, and the interstellar ramjet are detailed across sections on the nuclear thermal rockets, electrostatic ion thrusters, and aneutronic fusion for space missions. Wait for it, chat. It's coming. Additionally, in the Halcon years of air and space flight, Sizz described collaborating with Bussard on fusion propulsion for the National Aerospace Plane Program, the one that was just discussed by Tim Ventura at the beginning of that article, including using proton boron 11 fusion to heat hydrogen fuel in air-breathing ramjet scramjet engines, and noted how Bussard earlier interstellar ramjet ideas influenced his own research on quantum field energy for propulsion. Their joint efforts extended to the studies for Air Force research labs from 2002 to 2004, integrating Bussard's IEC fusion designs into hypersonic vehicles. What? Boom! Let's go, chat. Let's go. Are you kidding me? Part of this makes it sound like they wrote a book together. Were they just BFFs? They worked on the National Aerospace Plane Program. Bussard is the one that influenced Paul Sizz. They incorporated his IEC fusion into their hypersonic craft in the early 2000s. And the Air Force research labs are the ones that were funding it. Oh, we got you, bitch. We got you. You're done. You should have killed me when you had the chance. You should have killed me when you had the chance. Where is it? Boom! Gotcha, bitch. Oh, chat. Oh. Okay. So, Paul Sizz, my goat, possibly incorporated these fusion design, this IEC magneto-inertial hybrid fusion design, into his scramjet ramjet engine designs that he was talking about. Actually, we can now say, okay, we can hand off the research from Bussard to all of our Black Project science goats, and it's possible Charles Chase got a whiff of this. Charles Chase is connected to everybody. There's no way he doesn't know about Bussard. He was probably best buds with Bussard for all we know. Charles Chase probably researched all this, found it out himself, and had Lockheed Martin build the compact fusion reactor because he was like, hey, that stuff those guys are working on, inertial confinement fusion, all that's going to work. He was like, it's going to work. And so he goes and convinces the Lockheed Martin CXOs, and he says, brah, he says, Mr. CXO, I did the work. I did the research. I guarantee you we can make some plasma fusion orbs. They're going to be way better than North Korea's janky-ass plasma fusion orbs, and then we can sell it to the Navy, the military for a lot of money. A lot of money. And the CFO heard that, and all he saw was dollar signs, baby. Dollar signs. So I'm telling you guys, this is like now I'm leaning more towards like we're looking at probably government produced or Lockheed Martin, which is they're basically the government without being government. Some of those people produced the orbs, and they took this decades of research to produce them. And honestly, this makes the whole alien thing less and less likely. It doesn't rule it out because, I mean, we can teleport. So, of course, there's going to be aliens. But it makes the idea that there's alien craft visiting us less and less likely. And it makes it more and more likely that it's just our technology that we've been working on over the years. So I think we're going to leave it there for tonight, guys. I will give you a teaser for what we've got coming up next. And I think it's going to be tomorrow. I'm kind of feeling like I'm just going to stream every night this week, and we'll just see how it goes. The next thing I got queued up for you guys is this pretty cool interview. Let me see if I can find it here. Yep. Here, I think this is it, right? Yeah, here it is. So what we're going to watch, I think tomorrow we're just going to do a full watch party of this interview. I've taken a bunch of notes already for it. This is the actual 2006 Google presentation. You can see it's not even in HD. 2006 presentation, Google Talks by Robert Bussard. And check this out. Look how old school this is. He uses the overhead projector, just like Paul Sis used. Overhead projector. The reason why we can't do it tonight is because it's like an hour and 30 minutes. And I just don't have that much time to go. But it's really good. I already showed you a couple clips that I made. I'm going to make a few more. But I go ahead and I'll put the link in the chat for you guys if you want to pre-watch it and get ready. It's one of those things where like you can probably watch it a number of times because, you know, you're going to get new information out of it. But what's amazing is how candid he is. I can tell right away when someone's bullshitting you or if they're just being honest, downplaying it. And he's like, I'm not going to build this stuff. Some later person's going to build this stuff. But here are the reasons why you should go build it and why it works. When I hear someone talk like that, I'm like, okay, this dude knows what's good. Anyway, let's get to the super chats tonight, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed the live stream. I hope you guys learned something tonight. I appreciate it. John Glock, thank you very much, brother. I appreciate you. He says, my 3-year-old just bought me a cube he made out of magnets. Lol, wow. Well, John Glock's little 3-year-old's probably going to be making some fusion warp drives in the future, chat. Thank you guys in the Rumble chat as well, guys. I appreciate you guys. Some Alabama John wants to talk to me. Well, thank you, Alabama John. I appreciate you, bro. And then look what we got going on here in the YouTube. Oh, War Ranch LLC, Project Rover. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So yes, those projects that we listed. I don't know, what was the other acronym? The other acronym was called. Let me see. It's at the beginning of this. NEPA, Nuclear Energy for Propulsion. And then the other one was NERVA. NEPA and NERVA. So I think NEPA is the one that Paul Sis potentially worked on. Okay. Trying to keep it all straight. A lot of different projects here and there. Thank you, Brian Pemble. Says plasma at a high enough heat is invisible to the naked eye. Wow. So what Brian Pemble is saying here is that there may be another connection. Like, why would it look transparent when Ryan Graves is saying that these people saw a cube inside of a sphere? Because maybe the plasma at a certain temperature is just transparent. So you can see right through it, and you can see the structural device, the plasma fusion reactor in the middle. Chad, if we blew open the whole cube inside a sphere thing, this like we got IOUs going for Pulitzer Prizes at this point. I don't know how many Pulitzer Prizes we're up to at this point. At least 3, maybe 4. If we can not only explain neutronic fusion propulsion, but solve the whole UFO phenomenon, solve MH370, expose the whole fusion cover up. Yeah, that'd be pretty spicy. Thank you, Brian Pemble, for that super chat. Appreciate you, brother. Carrie Ethernet subscriber. The first Ethernet subscriber, spelt correctly, by the way, says, you not only changed me, you've changed current science fiction. They now use quantum and plasma fields for fast travel explanation. I have to be honest, I've been watching some of these garbage Marvel slop movies and stuff like that. It's almost like they're straight up stealing from us. In fact, I was watching the Stranger Things. Oh my God, was it bad? Holy crap. They completely mess up the physics too. He's like, it's a wormhole. It's using something called exotic matter to hold it open. And I'm sitting here going, okay, I guess we'll let it go because it's supposed to be like the 80s or something like that movie is supposed to happen. And in the 80s, that would have been crazy, right? Saying that exotic matter would have been fine. You come to me now saying that negative energy is exotic matter, Harry Potter, goo, or whatever the hell these people think it is. I'm going to crash out. I'm going to crash out on you because I'm tired of this psyop that negative energy is some swirly mist from Harry Potter or something like that. It's just a conceptual view of being below sea level. It's not that crazy, man. Okay. Thank you, Carrie, Ethernet subscriber. I'm holding back on my rants. S. Fleischer, Josh Polarity went on an amazing mad rant about how stupid people are who are so quick to dismiss you and your work. It was articulate and on point. I'm going to have to go check that out. Josh Polarity, I'm a huge fan of his show. I mean, I think Josh Polarity is going to get huge. He's a young guy. His YouTube channel is doing really well. He's giving really good commentary on what's going on. And that's just the truth. The reality is, guys, we're like 25 years ahead of the game. I don't even blame people for being dismissive or rude because we're talking about technology that the world's not even beginning to understand for another 25 years. We're just that far ahead. But Josh is right. The people that just reflexively are like, that's CGI, or you're a grifter, or that can't be real. Those people are idiots. And there's a lot of people like that. But there's a lot of people, too, that are close to being woken up, but are not quite there yet. And those are the people that we're slowly capturing. So thank you, Josh, and thank you. I can't remember if it's Steve Fleischer or whatever, but thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Mick Leonard, JD. Thank you, Mick. Appreciate the donation. Make English the national language. Is it not? Is English not the national language? Probably should be. Timothy Foster, thank you very much. Says, thank you for the teaching, Ashton. Got the Charles Schwab app for purchasing DJT TAE stock. Yes, the TAE stock. And again, this is a long-term investment. Fusion, this is the kind of thing where it's going to probably pay off like 5-10 years, but you're going to see if it works out. This is the type of bet that you bet on a billion-dollar company, multi-billion-dollar company to turn into a trillion-dollar company, right? You're expecting them to do like an NVIDIA or something like that. But again, diversify. Be smart about your investments. But don't expect a quick turnaround either. Nicholas Newsad says, thank you very much for that huge donation, by the way. Wow. Hope you end 2025 on a high note. The DOE has a searchable patent database with 1,400 filings, a good source to ID obscure inventors who don't publish. Onward and upward. Thank you very much for that huge donation. What I will say that Bussard even mentions that they have all the patents on that technology, but they probably are expiring by now. I mean, if that was 2006, those patents they're only like 18 years or something like that. So this technology might be up for grabs right now. Just throwing that out there. Probably if you're one of those people who wants to sleuth and stay up all night doing research, I would look into Bussard's patents and the patents with his company as well. Check out Tau Zero. I don't know if that was the name or not. No, sorry. Yeah. No, Tau Zero was Mark Mills. Sorry, never mind. Zapparoo. Fantastic stream, he says. Make the critics chortle your orbs with the 4 smiley face, 4 cool glasses faces. Appreciate you guys. Okay, guys, that's going to be it for me for tonight, guys. I appreciate everybody here. We will be back here. Oh, and then one more last one. Jaleel Robertson, awesome stream, bro. You too, guys. Okay, guys. Thank you very much. Hope you guys had a great stream or a great time tonight. We'll be back tomorrow, and we're going to take a look at that. We're going to do a watch party, and we're going to watch this whole video here of Bussard explaining how his device works, answering questions. I'll give you one more teaser for tomorrow. The very first question he gets is somebody asking him how a negative resistor would impact the configuration of the device, which is weird because negative resistor is the opposite how a resistor normally works. And it was something that we covered with Deborah Chung that figured out negative resistors like several decades ago. So it's going to be a fun one, guys. Have a great night, MH370X. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out, everybody. Later.
In the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum squeeze so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play, generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow. Thin shell formalism plates so fine, spherical geometry we realign, energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Forces balancing the plate, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound, a shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow. From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear.